Over 60? What if everything you've been told about staying active is only half the truth, and the one exercise you've been ignoring is the very thing that determines whether you stay independent or slowly lose your strength, balance, and confidence? Because here's the reality: most people focus on walking, but walking alone will not protect your legs, your hips, or your future mobility. And that's exactly why so many adults over 60 feel weaker each year, without understanding why. Muscle loss after the age of 60 is often accepted as something unavoidable, a natural decline that simply comes with time. But that belief is not only incomplete, it is dangerously misleading. What truly accelerates muscle loss is not aging itself, but inactivity. The body does not discard strength randomly. It responds directly to how it is used or neglected. When muscles are no longer challenged, they begin to shrink, weaken, and lose their function at a much faster rate than most people realize. This process, known as sarcopenia, is not an overnight event. It happens gradually, silently, often without immediate warning signs. At first, it may feel like slight fatigue, a little more effort required to stand up, or a subtle hesitation when climbing stairs. These small changes are easy to ignore, easy to justify as just getting older, but beneath the surface, the body is adapting to a lower demand. It is becoming less capable because it is no longer being asked to remain strong. The human body is highly efficient. It does not maintain what it does not need. If muscles are not used regularly with enough resistance or purpose, the body reduces its investment in them. This is not failure. It is adaptation. Unfortunately, this adaptation leads to reduced strength, slower movement, decreased stability, and eventually a higher risk of falls, injuries, and loss of independence. What makes this even more critical is that muscle tissue plays a far greater role than simply allowing movement. It supports joint health, stabilizes posture, regulates metabolism, and even contributes to balance and coordination. When muscle mass declines, these systems begin to weaken as well. The result is not just physical weakness, but a chain reaction that affects nearly every aspect of daily life. Many people over 60 believe that staying lightly active is enough to prevent this decline. Walking, occasional stretching, or routine daily tasks are often seen as sufficient. While these activities are beneficial for general health, they do not provide the level of stimulus required to preserve or rebuild muscle strength. Without intentional effort to challenge the muscles, the decline continues, regardless of how active one feels. The critical point to understand is that age does not eliminate the body's ability to build or maintain muscle. Research consistently shows that even in later decades of life, the body retains the capacity to respond to resistance and effort. Muscles can grow stronger, coordination can improve, balance can be restored, but only if the body is given a reason to adapt in that direction. Inactivity sends a clear message to the body: strength is no longer necessary. Movement with purpose sends the opposite message: strength is still required, still valuable, still essential. The difference between these two signals determines the trajectory of physical ability in later years. The idea that muscle loss is simply part of aging removes responsibility, and more importantly, removes opportunity. Because if something is seen as inevitable, it is rarely challenged. But when the true cause is understood, inactivity rather than age, it becomes clear that there is control, there is influence, and there is a path forward. Strength is not reserved for the young. It is preserved by those who continue to use it, demand it, and reinforce it through consistent, intentional movement. The body does not measure age when deciding whether to maintain muscle. It measures demand. Walking is often presented as the gold standard of exercise for older adults, a safe and accessible way to stay active, maintain health, and preserve mobility. While walking does offer meaningful cardiovascular benefits and supports general movement, relying on it as the primary or only form of exercise creates a critical gap, one that directly impacts strength, stability, and long-term independence. The limitation of walking lies in its predictability. It is a low-resistance, repetitive, forward-moving activity. The body adapts quickly to this pattern, and once that adaptation occurs, the stimulus for building or even maintaining muscle strength becomes minimal. The muscles are being used, but not challenged. And without challenge, there is no reason for the body to preserve strength at the level required for more demanding, real-life movements. Lower body strength is not built through repetition alone. It is built through resistance, control, and full muscle activation. Walking does not significantly engage the glutes, which are the largest and most powerful muscles in the body. These muscles are responsible for hip stability, posture, and the ability to generate force when standing, climbing, or recovering from a loss of balance. When the glutes are underused, they weaken, and other areas of the body begin to compensate, often leading to strain, discomfort, and instability. In addition, walking does not replicate the movements that are most critical for maintaining independence. Daily life requires the ability to stand up from a seated position, lower the body with control, step up onto surfaces, and stabilize during sudden shifts in balance. These actions demand strength, coordination, and control across multiple muscle groups. Walking by itself does not train these patterns effectively. It maintains motion, but it does not build the capacity required for these essential tasks. There is also the issue of intensity. For muscles to remain strong, they must be exposed to a level of effort that challenges them beyond their comfort zone. Walking at a comfortable pace rarely reaches this threshold. The body becomes efficient at the movement, expending less energy over time, which further reduces its impact on muscle preservation. What begins as a beneficial activity gradually becomes insufficient as the sole method of maintaining physical capability. Another overlooked factor is balance. Walking occurs in a relatively stable, linear pattern. It does not require the body to manage complex shifts in weight or respond to unexpected changes in direction. As a result, the systems responsible for balance and coordination are not fully engaged or strengthened. This creates a false sense of security. Movement is maintained, but stability is not truly improved. The consequence of relying solely on walking is subtle but significant. Strength declines quietly. Movements that once felt effortless begin to require more effort. Standing up becomes slower. Climbing stairs becomes more demanding. Recovering from a slight misstep becomes uncertain. These changes are often attributed to aging, but in reality, they reflect a lack of targeted muscular engagement. This does not diminish the value of walking. It remains an important part of a healthy routine, particularly for heart health, circulation, and mental well-being. However, it must be understood for what it is and what it is not. It is a foundation, not a complete solution. To maintain true physical resilience, the body must be challenged in ways that walking alone cannot provide. It must be asked to generate force, to control movement, and to stabilize under varying conditions. Without this, the decline in strength continues, regardless of how consistent the walking routine may be. The belief that walking is enough creates a gap between activity and capability. Closing that gap requires a shift in approach, one that recognizes the difference between simply moving and actively maintaining strength. Weak glutes are rarely the first thing people think of when they experience pain, instability, or a decline in mobility, yet they are often the underlying cause driving these issues. The gluteal muscles are the foundation of lower body strength and control. When they are functioning properly, they stabilize the hips, support the spine, and allow movement to occur with balance and efficiency. When they weaken, the entire system begins to compensate, and that compensation leads directly to problems that are often misattributed to other areas of the body. The glutes play a central role in maintaining alignment. Every time the body stands, walks, or shifts weight, these muscles are responsible for keeping the pelvis stable. Without that stability, the knees begin to take on more load than they are designed to handle. The lower back is forced to overwork to maintain posture, and the hips lose their ability to move smoothly. This chain reaction does not happen suddenly. It develops gradually, often without immediate pain, which makes it difficult to identify the true source. Back pain is one of the most common complaints among older adults, and in many cases, it is not caused by a primary issue in the spine itself. Instead, it is the result of weak or inactive glutes failing to support the pelvis. When the glutes do not engage properly, the lower back muscles attempt to compensate, leading to overuse, fatigue, and discomfort. Treating the back without addressing the glutes often provides only temporary relief because the root cause remains uncorrected. Knee pain follows a similar pattern. The knees are hinge joints, designed to move forward and backward with stability. They rely heavily on the muscles above and below them for support. When the glutes are weak, the alignment of the hips becomes unstable, and this instability transfers downward to the knees. As a result, the knees absorb forces they are not equipped to handle, leading to strain, discomfort, and increased risk of injury. Strengthening the glutes restores proper alignment and reduces unnecessary stress on the knees. Balance is another critical function that is directly influenced by glute strength. The ability to maintain stability while standing on one leg, shifting weight, or reacting to a sudden movement depends heavily on the gluteal muscles. When these muscles are weak, the body becomes less responsive, slower to correct imbalances, and more vulnerable to falls. This is not simply a matter of coordination, it is a matter of muscular readiness. Without strong glutes, the body lacks the foundation needed to react quickly and effectively. The loss of independence often begins with small, seemingly insignificant changes: difficulty standing up from a chair, hesitation when climbing stairs, a need to hold onto support while moving. These changes are frequently blamed on aging, but they are more accurately linked to declining muscle function, particularly in the glutes. As these muscles weaken, everyday tasks become more demanding, and confidence in movement begins to erode. What makes this issue particularly concerning is that glute weakness is often silent. Unlike an injury that produces immediate pain, weak glutes can go unnoticed for years, while gradually affecting movement patterns. By the time symptoms appear, the body has already developed compensations that are harder to correct. This is why early attention and targeted strengthening are so important. The body is designed to function as a coordinated system, and the glutes are at the center of that system. When they are strong, movement is efficient, stable, and controlled. When they are weak, the burden shifts to other areas, creating strain, imbalance, and increased risk. Recognizing the role of the glutes is not simply about improving strength. It is about addressing the root cause of many common issues that affect mobility and quality of life. Restoring glute strength restores the foundation upon which all movement depends. Without that foundation, no amount of compensation can fully replace what has been lost. The idea that improving strength requires complex routines, multiple exercises, or extended time commitments has led many older adults to believe that meaningful progress is out of reach. This belief creates hesitation, inconsistency, and ultimately inaction. What is often overlooked is that the body does not require complexity to respond. It requires the right stimulus applied with precision. A single, well-chosen movement can activate multiple critical muscle groups simultaneously, delivering results that are both efficient and highly effective. The human body is designed to move in patterns, not in isolated parts. Every time you perform a functional movement, standing up, sitting down, lifting, or stabilizing, multiple muscles work together in coordination. This is how strength is applied in real life. Training the body in the same way it naturally moves ensures that improvements in strength translate directly into improvements in daily function. This is why a compound movement, one that engages several muscle groups at once, holds far greater value than a series of isolated exercises performed without context. When a movement is selected correctly, it can target the glutes, thighs, core, and stabilizing muscles all at the same time. These are the exact muscle groups responsible for maintaining posture, controlling balance, and generating the force needed for everyday tasks. Instead of dividing attention across multiple exercises, a single focused movement allows the body to develop strength in a coordinated and practical manner. This not only saves time, but also reinforces the natural connection between muscles, improving overall efficiency of movement. There is also a neurological advantage to this approach. the body does not just build muscle, it strengthens the communication between the brain and the muscles. When multiple muscle groups are activated together, the nervous system becomes more efficient at coordinating their actions. This leads to smoother, more controlled movements, reducing the risk of missteps, instability, and injury. Over time, this improved coordination becomes automatic, supporting safer and more confident movement in daily life. Another critical factor is consistency. Complex routines often create barriers. They require more time, more effort to remember, and more motivation to maintain. As a result, they are more likely to be abandoned. A single effective movement removes these barriers. It simplifies the process, making it easier to perform regularly. And consistency is the true driver of long-term improvement. The body responds not to occasional effort, but to repeated, intentional action over time. Efficiency does not mean compromise. A properly executed compound movement can provide sufficient resistance and challenge to stimulate muscle growth and strength, even in older adults. The key lies in control, form, and gradual progression. By focusing on quality rather than quantity, the body is given a clear and consistent signal to adapt. This adaptation leads to stronger muscles, improved stability, and greater confidence in movement. There is also a psychological benefit to simplicity. When progress is tied to one clear action, it becomes easier to measure, easier to feel, and easier to trust. Each repetition reinforces the sense of capability. Each session builds momentum. This creates a positive cycle where effort leads to visible and tangible results, encouraging continued participation. The effectiveness of a single movement is not a matter of convenience. It is a reflection of how the body functions best. Strength is not built through scattered effort, but through focused, coordinated engagement of the muscles that matter most. By concentrating on a movement that aligns with real-life demands, the body is trained not just to become stronger, but to remain capable, stable, and resilient. The misconception that more exercises equal better results often leads to confusion and inconsistency. In reality, the right movement, performed with intention and repeated consistently, can achieve far more than a complex routine that is difficult to sustain. The body responds to clarity, it responds to purpose. And when multiple critical muscle groups are activated together through a single effective movement, the result is a level of strength that supports independence and long-term mobility. The belief that progress depends on intensity often leads to unnecessary strain, inconsistency, and eventual discouragement, especially in later years. What truly determines results is not how hard an exercise feels in a single moment, nor how long a session lasts, but how consistently the right movement is performed over time. The body does not respond to occasional bursts of effort, it responds to repeated signals that reinforce strength, stability, and control. Consistency creates adaptation. Every time a movement is repeated with proper form, the body receives a clear message to maintain and improve the muscles involved. This message is cumulative. It builds gradually, strengthening not only the muscles, but also the connective tissues, the joints, and the communication between the brain and the body. When this signal is delivered regularly, the body adjusts in a predictable and reliable way, preserving function and enhancing capability. Intensity, when misunderstood, often becomes a barrier rather than a benefit. Many people assume that exercise must feel exhausting or difficult to be effective. This leads to overexertion, discomfort, and in some cases, injury. More importantly, it reduces the likelihood of maintaining a routine. When an activity feels overwhelming, it is naturally avoided. This creates long gaps between efforts, and those gaps interrupt the process of adaptation. Without consistency, even the most intense efforts lose their value. Duration presents a similar challenge. Long routines can appear productive, but they are often difficult to sustain. They demand time, energy, and motivation that may not always be available. As a result, they are performed irregularly, if at all. The body does not measure the length of a workout. It measures how often it is asked to perform and adapt. Short, focused sessions repeated consistently provide a far stronger foundation for improvement than long, infrequent efforts. The principle is straightforward. The right movement, performed regularly, produces results. This approach removes unnecessary complexity and replaces it with clarity. It allows the body to focus on what matters, strengthening the muscles that support daily life. When a movement is repeated with control and intention, it reinforces proper patterns, improves coordination, and gradually increases strength without overwhelming the system. There is also a protective element to consistency. Gradual progression allows the body to adapt safely. Muscles strengthen, joints become more stable, and balance improves without sudden stress. This reduces the risk of injury and builds confidence in movement. Each repetition becomes an opportunity to refine control and reinforce stability, creating a sense of reliability in the body's ability to perform. Another critical aspect is habit formation. Consistency transforms effort into routine. When a movement is simple and manageable, it becomes easier to integrate into daily life. It no longer requires significant motivation or planning. It becomes part of a pattern, something that is done regularly without resistance. This is where lasting change occurs, not through isolated effort, but through sustained practice. The body thrives on repetition with purpose. It does not require extreme challenges to improve. It requires clear, consistent input. When the same movement is performed day after day, or several times a week, the body becomes more efficient, more stable, and more capable. Strength increases gradually but reliably. Balance improves. Movements that once required effort become easier and more controlled. The emphasis shifts from doing more to doing what works, and doing it often. This approach respects the body's natural process of adaptation and aligns with the goal of maintaining independence and mobility over time. It removes the pressure to perform at high intensity and replaces it with a sustainable strategy that delivers results. Consistency with the right exercise is not a compromise. It is the most direct path to maintaining strength and function. It ensures that progress is steady, safe, and lasting, reinforcing the body's ability to support itself through every movement of daily life.